All right, welcome back everybody, and welcome to February. So here it is, Saturday, February 1st, right after 10 o'clock. The weather is 61 degrees, humidity is about 72%. This afternoon's high is in or around the mid 60s, I believe around 64. I'm just gonna walk out to the yard to show you what that looks like, and then I will explain some of my plans for today and to kick off the month pretty quickly. All right, let's take a look at the bees. Hopefully you can see that, and I'll walk around of course, but they are enjoying this weather. All right, let's go take a look at the front of the entrances. Yeah, no kidding. They are looking alive and well. Every single one of them. All right, so my plans are pretty simple today. There's really two main things I want to get done. First, I want to clean out the sugar water mixing barrel. And then once I'm done with that, which won't really take all that long, or it shouldn't, once I'm done with that, I plan on getting into the hives. And of course I'll share that with you, but hopefully it's a relatively quick check. I'm really just pulling a few frames, making a quick assessment of brood, more so for the double stacked boxes, to see if the brood's in the top box. If the hives that have overwintered in the deep and medium configuration, if they have a lot of brood up top and not a lot down below, so I'll reverse those boxes this afternoon, and then maybe I'm going to do three things today. And the third one's really, there's not much to it. The third one being all of the boxes that I stored in the shed using Paramoth. I'm going to pull them out. 5 mediums preferably. I'm going to start with that, right? 5 mediums. I'm going to pull them out and let them air out for the next week, with the intent of adding those boxes to the 5 single deeps that are out here. Maybe next weekend pull out a few more boxes, deeps maybe, with the intent of adding those as honey supers to the colonies that overwintered with the deep and medium. I am going to try and get our largest honey crop this year. That's my goal. Okay, so 3 things today, right? Again, clean the mixing barrel, get into the hives, and just take a look and see how they are looking as far as brood, and then wrap up today or this weekend by pulling at least 5 mediums out of storage and letting them air out over the week. All right, here it is just before noon. The temperature actually warmed up a little more than I thought it would be, and more than the Accurate weather app. So right here at the house, it is 66 degrees, and that's a few degrees warmer than both the iPhone built-in app, I think that's powered by the Weather Channel, and Accurate. That's warmer than both of those apps say. So I'm about to get the smoker lit for the first time in months, and then, like I said earlier, I'm just going to go through the hives and make a quick assessment to see how the brood's looking. The single deeps, if it's looking pretty good. I already have the 5 supers airing out right now, so the intent there is to let them air out all day, and I have a fan on them to kind of expedite the process. And then I'll get those added tomorrow as long as the singles need them. And then today again, I'm going through the multi-stacked boxes, the deeps and mediums. Take a look in the top, and if they have a lot of brood up there, which if history hasn't changed, that's what I'm expecting to see. And if the bottom box is light, I will reverse them. And the plan moving forward, in case I didn't say this earlier, is to leave them reversed for the month of February, and then March I'll have to kind of create some plans come the end of the month. So enough of me yapping. Let's get into the hives for the first time in 2025 and the first time in quite a few months. All right, here we go. Down here at number 1 in the number 1 position. I didn't really say this earlier, but the earlier clip, I could see bees bringing in pollen. So that was pretty interesting. And you'll probably hear me say this a few times throughout the season, but considering this is the very first video, just keep an eye on the bottom side of your top cover and then inner cover for the queen, since the colony doesn't have a queen excluder. All right, give you a close-up look real quick. But if we're counting frames of bees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 out of 8, 5 out of 8. Overall, not bad. All right, I'm just gonna pull the feeder to give myself, geez, some space to work, and then I'll pull a few frames and share that with y'all. All right, I'm on frame number 4. I know this won't come up on camera, but there's some eggs over here, and there's a little bit of capped brood in the center. I have not seen the queen just yet, but they are very calm. And the fact that I found eggs and a little capped brood. Oh, there she is. Speaking of, okay. They are good to go. And one additional thing I want to show y'all, and I'll just show you for this one, is since this is the first inspection of the season, I just like to take the bottom box off, just kind of dump all the bees onto the ground that are on the bottom box, and then just clean off the bottom board. It's kind of like a jump start onto some spring cleaning. Get all that debris off that's fallen down there over the winter. All right, very next hive is number 2. In the number 2 position. So that's nice to see. They've actually been using a lot of the feed that I've given them. And it's kind of tricky. Just set this down gently. I don't want to dump the sugar and squish any bees. All right, quick first look. Yeah, same thing. Pull a few frames, see if the queen started to move up in the top box, and then take a quick look at the bottom box. And if I need to reverse them, like I said in the introduction, that's what I'll end up doing. This is the second frame in the top box, of course, and that's nice to see. They still have some food stores left. Same thing with this one. So if I were to recap on things I did last year that seemed to work well, is feeding the bees as early as possible and as heavy as possible leading up until the fall. But yeah, it's nice to see. All right, hopefully you can see her. So no brood in the top box. They actually have a few, no cap brood. They actually have a few wet cells. That was interesting to find. So no cap brood, obviously queen right, and a few wet cells, which that was interesting, and some food left over. So I'm gonna get into the bottom box just real quick, just to take a look at it, right? To see how that brood's looking, if they have any. But most likely, since the queen's in the top box currently and there's not much capped brood, I'll probably just leave them configured as they are. All right, number 2 didn't have a lot going on in the bottom box, so I just left them as is, and maybe around the middle of February I'll come back. If I see more brood in the top box, that might be a good time to reverse them. All right, here we go. Quick look at number 19's inner cover. They're making pretty nice use of the provided sugar. So same thing, just set that aside. And they have a nice amount of bees in the top box. So same thing, pull a few frames. If I see a lot of brood, I'll reverse the boxes. If not, I'll just leave them be for now. This is frame number 4. And I just wanted to show you that they have a lot of food left over, which is always a good thing. I often wonder that throughout the winter, how much food the bees have left. And there's certain times where, well, there's many months where you just don't know because you can't get into them. But yeah, they have a nice amount of food remaining, and that's exactly what you want to see. So not only is she in the top box, but she's actually doing a pretty nice job because they have some capped brood up there. So I'm just going to put this box back together, get into the bottom very briefly again, just to take a look and see if they have brood down there. I kind of doubt they will, and then I'll finish up with cleaning off the bottom board. I've been very curious about this one. This is number 11, and I've been curious because they are the only colony overwintered in a nuke. And to top it off, because I left a feeder, they are actually a 3-frame nuke. So I might just let the camera roll. This should be pretty quick. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if it's going to come up or not, but to the right of the capped honey, there are some wet cells right there. Okay, well shoot. They're still queen right. So I'm just gonna put them back. I'm not trying to mess anything up at this point. But yeah, that is pretty cool to see. Just gonna clean off the bottom board, and that's it for this one. Yeah, down here at 14, they're making good use of the provided sugar. And let's just take a quick first look. Same thing today for all the colonies. Let's go through the top box and just see how things are looking. Alright, so they don't seem to have too many bees in the top box. They're kind of concentrated right here, which is fairly normal, but I'll show you anything worthwhile. Alright, I'm just putting the top box back together, and surprisingly, I did not see the queen up here. They have a lot of food stores. For one reason or the other, I have a lot of shallow frames in this box, so that's actually on my agenda. My to-do list this year is get all the boxes right. I don't have many, it's very few, but it's just one of those things to have shallow frames in a medium box. I did that because they had nice food stores and a lot of drawn wax. And here's a quick look at the bottom box. This looks pretty nice. So about in the middle of the box, wanted to show you something interesting if I can find the one bee, but no kidding, I've seen a few bees now. Yeah, right there actually, bringing in some pollen, and I'm not feeding them at all. The red maples are kind of close. Yeah, right there too. The red maples are pretty close to blooming, and another one. It's not a lot, but it's a start. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see. Very next frame. Alright, that's it for this one. So I'm just gonna put them back together. No need to keep looking, and give them about 2 more weeks before making a decision to reverse any boxes, mainly because they don't have any capped brood just yet, or not a lot. I didn't look at the last 2 or 3 frames, but I've seen enough to just exercise some patience and check back around the middle of the month. All right, Let's get into number 12. So same thing. We're still making good use of the provided sugar, which I topped them off sometime in the last week or so, either right before all the snow we had or right after. Can't remember, but that'll be part of the last third of January's video. All right, there she is, middle frame. So again, just gonna put them back together. Nothing else to do with this one. Not a lot of brood. That is kind of interesting compared to years before, where early January or mid-January you had a lot of brood, but doesn't matter really. As long as they're queen right, I'm sure they'll be fine. All right, down here at 17. They've definitely used up a decent amount of feed in the last week or so, which is the intended purpose. I haven't really showed a first look lately, but they actually look like they have a nice amount of bees in the top box. All right, I figured this is worth showing. Half of this top box looks just like this, which is amazing. So perhaps they just didn't need as much food as I provided throughout the winter, which is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but no queen in the top box. The center frames showed promise, meaning it looks like they used the food stores, and there's a lot of open cells that are available for the queen to lay in. She just hasn't got up there yet, so I'm going to get into the bottom box and just take a quick look. Yeah, I imagine this colony has a pretty healthy population based off what the top box initially looked like, and now taking a first look at the bottom box. I'd say that's a good thing. Very first frame. So although there's not much of a reason to look through the rest of the colony, I still want to pull a few frames just to see if she started laying brood down here, because it's not too typical to find the queen on the very outside frame, and it's hard to see in the darker comb. I'm just going to take a look at one more frame. The flashlight I usually use broke a few weeks ago, and I just haven't gotten around to getting another one. But yes, that's what you want to see. So that's frame number 3. This is the side that faces the inside of the colony, and this is the side that faces the outside. But hopefully you can see right around all that capped brood is some nice pearly larvae, and I have no doubt there are eggs scattered throughout that frame. But yeah, no kidding. To find the queen on the very first frame, that's pretty cool. All right. Just moving along. Down here at number 13, which is kind of right in the middle of the yard. Now I will show you this, because this looks completely different from the rest of the colonies. It doesn't look like they have a lot of bees at all. So same thing, just pull the feeder, start going through them, and maybe they're just a small cluster, which is fine as long as they're queen right, but that is kind of concerning. All right, there's surprisingly more bees in here than I thought, and if you can't see her, they're queen right, and she's on the 3rd frame. So honestly, I'm not really going to go through them anymore. I'm going to clean off the bottom board, and that's it for this one. All right, down here at 5, and they have been a very strong colony over this last year, and I just wanted to show you how they look right now, as far as really clustered up on top of the dry sugar. So I go into this hive with caution, because if my memory serves me right, they've been fairly aggressive this last year, mainly due to their colony size. But nonetheless, just going to give you all a quick first look at the top box, and then go through the rest of it. Yeah, they seem to be favoring the left side, which my theory is because the sun hits the left side of the colony first. But either way, I'm just gonna go frame by frame and see what I can figure out. All right, just finishing up in the top box. The reason they seem concentrated on the left side is because the right side looks like this. And the left side, like another colony, has several shallow frames. So I have a plan for that, not to completely be wasteful, but my plan is to, when I make a few splits, I have a shallow 5 frame for a nuke box, and I think I'm just going to consolidate all of the shallow frames that are currently in medium boxes and use them for nukes. But yeah, no kidding, this colony seems to remain pretty strong, so hopefully I can find the queen, or at least evidence that they're still queen ripe. All right, this is interesting. I'm on the third to the last frame. I may have lost her, but no kidding, they have an unmarked queen, and I am pretty confident all of the colonies I had going into the winter had marked queens. So I'm gonna put a brick on top of this colony just to kind of make a note that they have an unmarked queen. I mean, she's been laying. They have some capped brood, and again, with the darker comb, it's next to impossible to see eggs without a flashlight. And of course, mine broke. There she is. Yeah, no kidding. Right there. So who knows when that happened, but yeah, I'm just gonna put them back together, clean off the bottom board, and that's it. And again, this is number 5, so 5 has an unmarked queen. Ain't that something, huh? All right, moving right along. The next colony is 15, and just like number 5, I recall them being a pretty strong and semi-aggressive colony. Okay, not to bore y'all to death, but same thing. I'll show you anything interesting. Just wanted to show you, this is the very middle frame, and they still have a decent amount of food stores, which is good, right? It's kind of what you want. So yeah, perhaps lesson learned last year by feeding them very early, and it seems like you just can't feed them enough sometimes, especially once it gets close to the fall and winter, to where you really can't feed them other than the dry sugar method. All right, that's it for the top box. No brood, just a lot of food, a few blank frames, mainly the outer ones, or at least the ones on this side starting out. So that means I have to get into the bottom box and see what they've been up to. And of course, before I get started, just a quick first look, and they look like a pretty healthy colony, so we'll see. As long as I can find the queen, I'll be pretty happy today. All right, we have a nice patch of capped brood, and there's some open larvae on frame number 5, so that's as good as it's going to get for now. All right, down here at number 3. Yeah, just a quick first look, and then I'll share anything that I find that might be semi-interesting. Well, this is pretty darn interesting too. Unmarked. So no kidding. That's 2 colonies without a marked queen. And I would mark her usually, but honestly, I don't want to run the risk right now if anything happens. I don't have a means to get them queen right, so I'm actually gonna exercise some caution and some patience and not mark them until we are a little closer, or not mark her, until we are a little closer to the spring, because I would hate to lose a queen because the paint pen just bled a little more than I wanted it to, and I say that because it's happened before. So yeah, this close to spring with a queen right colony, the last thing I want to do is cause my own problems. All right, let's get into number 7. All right, just finishing up, going through the top box. Outer frames, empty now. The frames right next to the center, a lot of food, and the center 2 frames, it looks like they've consumed those food stores, and they're cleaning up the cells in preparation for the queen, but no brood in the top box, which means I'm gonna have to get back down into the bottom box and take a look, just to show you all a quick first look. So they seem to have a decent population, but you can never tell until you get down in there, and that's exactly what I'm about to do. All right, very nice to see right here at the top, a little capped brood. Oh, check that out. Oh, she is marked. She has a very, very, very faint red dot. So I was gonna say a lot of nice larvae too. So let's get them put back together. Makes me very curious whether or not the queens from the other boxes that I found that were unmarked, that maybe the paint just wore off, but unlike that one, those other queens, I mean, there was like no evidence that they were marked. So TBD on those, but at least this one, which is number 7, they're completely queen right with a red marked queen, so that's pretty cool too. All right, we made it down to the very last hive, which is number 9. Same thing as the previous looks. Just gonna get into them and see how they're looking, but yeah, that's a nice amount of bees in the top box for this one. Just finishing up in the top box, and yeah, no kidding, most of the frames are pretty full with food reserves, so that is still very interesting to me, to be now in February and to have the amount of food reserves they still have. So that does give me peace of mind, but that also means I have to get into the bottom box and see how things are looking down there. That is a really good first look, so I'm confident they are doing fine, but you never know until you get into them. So let's do that, and that will finish it up for today. This is frame number 3. Nice small patch of capped brood, and it's probably hard to see, but there's a lot of really nice larvae right there as well. I'm looking for the queen, and I'm going to keep going since this is the last colony for the day. But once you find something like that, there's really no need to keep going unless you just want to. All right, folks, that does it for me. So it's about 1:45, and that is a pretty cool way to start February. So as y'all saw, this is the last hive I just finished with, but yeah, as y'all saw, they're all looking good. Let me back up. I marked number 9 with a vertical brick because I didn't find the queen. They do have signs they're queen right, I just didn't find her. Number 7 with a brick. I found that queen, and she has like the smallest little remnants of a marking, and a red marking in fact. And then number 5, and darn, I thought there was another one, and maybe there was. I'll have to look back at the video, but I think there's another hive that had an unmarked queen, and I moved the brick for some reason because I'm pretty sure it was more than just number 5 here. But yeah, anyway, that's it for me. Just wanted to get into all the hives, and I will say this much: I was slightly optimistic, hoping the hives would have a lot more brood than y'all saw, because I really wanted to add some mediums to the single deeps, and I really wanted to reverse the boxes today or tomorrow for the double stacked colonies, but that is not the case, and that's just how things go sometimes when you keep bees. But I'm gonna give them about 2 weeks, maybe next weekend, maybe middle of the month, and check on them again, and hopefully by then there will be more of a need to add boxes and reverse the ones, because it has just started to warm up, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. All right, here we go. So hey, it's Friday, February 7th, right after 10 o'clock. Temperature is 69 degrees and the humidity is 84%. And this is kind of like a false spring because we still have some cold days coming, but nonetheless, it feels good. So I am out here to clean out the mixing barrel. That's right, folks. One of the items I wanted to tackle last weekend did not happen and got rolled to today. But first, let's go look at the hives, check out the entrances, and show y'all, if you can't see that right now, they are really enjoying this weather based off the activity, which is great to see. So yeah, we'll take a look at the front like usual, and then I will walk you through some of my plans. Good Lord, look at that. I will walk you through some of my plans that I may have mentioned last week, which is the early part of the video. And those plans entail adding some space to the single deeps. These bees are bringing in a ton of pollen. This is awesome to see. We'll just walk down the line and then I'll walk you through some plants. Wow, they are alive and well. All right, no real need to stay out here, so I'll do some walking and talking and explain my plans as I go back to the shed, which is where I actually want to show you a few things. So I had some dead outs, not many, and then I combined a few hives in the fall. Point being, I had a lot of stored equipment and drawn comb, which is fantastic. And I did it right this year. I did it right, and I used some paramoth. And I have 5 medium boxes with drawn comb that I've been airing out over the last week, and I'll show you how I'm doing that. And my plans are either to add them today or tomorrow. Probably do it today. And I'm not just gonna put the entire box on a hive. I'm gonna basically equalize the empty mediums with drawn comb that I'm about to show you, and the boxes that have overwintered, which, based off the earlier part of the video from last week, some of them have a lot of nice food stores. So this is what I'm talking about. I've been running 2 fans, as you can see, just to help speed up the process with airing them out. And I'm gonna get these on the colonies today or tomorrow. So the idea is, like I just mentioned, is to equalize the hives. So whether I open them all up at once or 2 or 3 at a time, really just kind of take a look through the top box. If I can find the queen, that's fantastic. I'll cage her just for safekeeping. And then between the box that I'm in and the boxes that I have in the shed that I'm about to add to the colonies, the idea is to create space, especially for the singles and actually the doubles. And I'm going to do that by moving food frames to the outer two frames, so 4, and then give the 6 in the center completely open with drawn comb. So hopefully the queen can start lining up in there. And I might do that for the majority of February, and then start supering here about a month ahead of time, because typically I add supers April 1st, but in an effort to not miss out on any sort of nectar flow, I may add supers March 1st, which is all TBD. But first, let me get the mixing barrel cleaned up, show you a few clips of that, and then since the weather's nice today and I have the time, I'll probably end up getting into the hives and doing all the things that I just mentioned. So stay tuned and let's get to it. All right, I got everything set up minus the extension cord, and I'll explain why. So everything's ready to go. Got the nozzle dragged over here. So the plan is just to add some fresh water, plug it in, of course, let it run a little bit, and then cycle all the nasty water out, fill it up with some bleach, maybe a cup or two, and then use the nozzle to get the inside of the barrel as clean as possible. All right, so regarding the extension cord, and I wish I could recall the gentleman's name right now, but I was having some problems back in, I think, June, or whenever the last time I fed the colonies. And the problems I was having was the sump pump kept tripping a lot sooner than before. So the first time I ran the mixing barrel with the sump pump, I think it ran for about 45 minutes and then turned off. I read the manual, and it has a overheating element built into it. So I determined that was why. And then a few months later, I think in June, ran it again, and it tripped after like maybe 10 minutes, which was obviously way different than 45, right? So somebody commented on that video, and a light bulb went off because I didn't even consider this. And what I did not consider was the type of power cord I was using. So what I have been using was a 16.3 light duty 10 amp cord. And I'm pretty sure the sump pump is probably maxing that out. So I took that gentleman's advice and bought a 12.3 15 amp extension cord, which I am going to use today for the first time, and I'll gauge whether it works or not based on how long the sump pump runs. So after initial cleaning and everything, I'll unplug it for a few minutes and then plug it back in, which should reset the whatever circuitry's inside the sump pump or heat detecting element. And I plan on timing it to see if I can get a full 45 minutes out of it. So we'll see how that goes. I'll share some clips, of course, but let me get this thing unpackaged, hooked up, and then we'll get to cleaning. All right, I decided before I really get started and add bleach and plug in the sump pump, I'm just gonna fill it up to about 10 gallons so it has a decent amount of water to circulate. And this is kind of a cool feature on this plug is, where's it at? Right there in the middle. I don't know, you probably can't see that, but there's a small LED that lets you know it has power. So that's kind of cool. All right, here we go. About to get it plugged in. Yeah, I'm just gonna let that run for maybe 2 minutes and then add some bleach and then grab the nozzle, like I said, and use that to clean from the top of the barrel down and just let it run until it turns off. So hopefully that's about 45 minutes. I'm also gonna start a stopwatch or a countdown on my watch. It's an hour. I'm pretty confident it's not gonna last a full hour, but I'll stop the timer on my watch whenever it kicks off, and then between my watch and the phone, we'll have a pretty good idea how long it ran using the heavy duty cord. All right, the sump pump's been running for about 10 minutes, and I've been doing what you see right here, running the water through the hose back into the barrel to rinse out the inside, like I think I said a few times, for about 4 minutes. So I'm about to empty the barrel, rinse it out, rinse and repeat literally a few times until the water's pretty clear, and then just let the sump pump keep on running until it trips the heat sensor, so I can figure out exactly how long that is with the new cord that I'm using. All right, after 4 cycles of filling it up to 10 gallons, running it down until you can hear the sump pump getting some air into the line, I am now going to fill it up to 10 gallons, let the water keep running, and just kind of create a cycle, but to drain it. So my idea now, because the water is pretty clear, I'll show you that here in a second, I guess, is to just run it for a few minutes, maybe 2 minutes like this, and that should be good. But before I get started, let me show you the difference. That's looking a little better. But yeah, just part of spring preparations. All right, I am satisfied with how it cleaned up. I'll show you that here in a second. And at this point, I am just letting it run to see how long it actually runs for. So there we go. Thanks to the power of bleach, it went from pretty nasty to pretty darn clean. And currently it's been running for 25 minutes, so I'm anticipating 45 minutes it'll shut off. I'm actually going to adjust my watch for a 20-minute countdown timer, or maybe 18, and we'll see how that looks. All right, we are at 40 minutes, and it's going pretty strong. I'm actually going to start pumping it out. 40 minutes is way more than enough time to mix sugar, and I really don't want it to trip, because once it trips, it has to cool off for maybe 30 or 40 minutes. All right, final look. There's always about an inch or two of water, just because of how the sump pump is. I can't get it completely empty, but no kidding, just turned it off. It made it to 44 minutes just fine. So I'm gonna look back at that previous video and figure out what gentleman suggested a better extension cord, reach out to him and say thank you. All right, here it is, just after 12 o'clock, 76 degrees, 63%. It feels great. And if you thought the bees were flying a lot earlier, they have really picked up their activity. So as y'all saw, I got some medium boxes ready to go. Just gonna go turn off the fence, and my plan, if I didn't explain it earlier, I'll explain it again. Wow, that's amazing. My plan is to add those 5 medium boxes to the 5 single deeps, and at the same time, while I'm out here, get into the other, I think 8 or 9, not double deeps, but the overwintered colonies with a deep and a medium. Get into them now that it's been another week, and move some food frames around from those mediums to the mediums I'm adding, and then take the frames from the stored mediums and add them to the overwintered mediums to give them some space. We'll see how this goes. I'll share a few clips, of course, but my grand idea really is to try to provide all the colonies with 4 frames of food and put them on the outer edges in the 1st and 2nd and the 9th and 10th position, and then between the frames that are currently in the mediums and the frames that are stored, to give all the colonies the center 6 frames of nothing but open drawn comb for the queen to start expanding in. And I think I'm gonna let her just run free for the month of February, reassess at the end of the month, and super early, meaning maybe March 1st versus what I typically do is April 1st. So enough of me yapping. Let's get to it and see how things go today. Right, just a quick look. So this is the hive in the 2nd position. They're pretty darn strong. A lot of pollen being stored in the top box. And I moved, I moved a few frames, I think 4, right? Yeah, took 4 from here, put over here, gave them some nice food frames on the outside, and the rest are wide open. So I'm gonna add that box to the hive in the 1st position, and then basically just do the same. So by the time I'm done today, all the colonies will be configured as a deep and a medium, and then moving around a bunch of frames from the colonies that overwintered to get some food stores into the medium boxes I'm adding to the single deeps. And then just a quick look at the 1st colony. So they obviously have a lot of sugar on top, so giving them a few frames of food in addition to some space for the queen should really help get them going for the season. I was able to find the queen. She was actually up in the top box. So a few pros, a few cons. Finding the queen, awesome. Getting this box situated with some outside food frames, and then the center just wide open for her to lay in, also good. Another positive, I got all these shallow frames out of this box, which I don't really know why I did that. I'm definitely not going to do that this year. And in fact, the handful, maybe 10 or 15 shallow frames I have, I'm only going to keep them because I have shallow 5-frame boxes like this one, and they do serve their purpose for 5-frame nukes, right? The con is it really depleted this box down to 4, so I will have to, I think I have enough frames with some drawn comb that are aired out in the shed, so I'll have to go back and get them later, but for now we're good to go. And of course, let's watch the queen. Where's she at? Crawl back in. Oh, she's still in there. Come on. There she goes. All right, just wrapping things up. So I need 4 food frames for this box to be added to this single deep, and the plan is to pull 2 from each of the remaining 2 colonies, because that just seems to make sense and is fair. And then this last box here is number 3. And I have failed to pay attention which boxes were singles that I added mediums to, but I think I can figure that out by looking at the earlier part of the video. So far so good. Stuff's going pretty well, pretty easy. Not really much to it, but hopefully this gives the hives that overwintered as singles a boost in room. I mean, not hopefully, I know it will, and especially the drawn comb. So it's the first week of February. I'm going to give them about 2 solid weeks of just uninterrupted work, meaning I'm not going to get into them. I might feed them a very light mixture of sugar water to stimulate the queen, but I'm not going to tear through the boxes, and then check on them. Yeah, the plan is to check on them later in the month. I just thought this was worth sharing since this is the very last colony. I'm pulling, again, 2 food frames out for this box, which is for number 3 down there, but this queen is doing a fantastic job in the top box, and this is exactly what I'm hoping to see all the colonies looking like at the end of the month. And I had a brick, on top of this colony, and I do remember I did that because I found the queen and she wasn't marked, and trying to exercise some patience and more cautionary, right? Because if anything goes wrong marking a queen right now, there's not really, you don't really stand a good chance of replacing her, and then you'd have to combine hives and all the things you really don't want to do this close to spring. So I know they have a queen, obviously, and I know she's not marked, and I am totally fine with that until we get closer to spring, which is when I will make an effort to find her and mark her. All right, wrapping things up with number 3. Pretty easy for the single deeps because I'm not really doing anything but adding a box, and they're looking pretty healthy, so I know they can use the room, they can use the food. Doing this is also preventing me from having to buy any sugar anytime soon. However, like I said a few moments ago, I do plan on feeding just a very thin mix to stimulate the queen. All right, that does it for me, everybody. So it's just about 1:30. I got all the hives configured exactly how I want them. And like I said, I'm gonna give them about 2 weeks of uninterrupted time to get busy. And hopefully by the 3rd week of February, come out, pop the tops, take a look at the top boxes, and we have a whole lot of brood up in the top box. Hey, welcome back, everybody. So here it is, Sunday, February 9th, right at 1 o'clock. The outside temperature is 72 degrees, 82%, and obviously I'm coming to you from inside the shed because I want to share a few things with you. And if I've talked about or mentioned timelines earlier in this video, while it's great to have a plan, we all know plans change very quickly, and that's why I'm sharing this clip with y'all today. So again, February 9th, I may have discussed my plan for swarm traps, or historically, my plan for swarm traps is usually hanging them around March 1st and then baiting them around maybe the 10th or so. I'm out here to finish a few things with the swarm traps, which I'll explain and show you, but I dragged them out of storage They are all set. I'll show you that real quick. They are all set with 4 frames that have nothing but new foundation, and this has actually worked pretty well in the past. And I use 1 frame that has drawn wax, and that's what I consider baiting them. And then I changed it up this year. I've used pill bottles in the past, but this year I've used these, or I'm going to use these bottles, 4 cotton balls. Obviously you can see a whole bunch of holes drilled in them. And then I'll show you something here in a second that I did last year that seemed to work pretty well. I have the crock pot going to melt some wax, and then I'm going to add just a little more wax. There's actually a decent amount left over from last year, but I'm going to add some hot wax to this and then spray it with my favorite lure that I've used for quite a few years. If you haven't noticed or haven't seen the Facebook and Instagram post about what I use to bait my hives, hey, to each their own. There's something on the market for everybody. It really depends how much or how little you want to spend, and I consider myself a little on the frugal side. So for years now I've been using this stuff right here. It's off Amazon. I bought that 4-ounce bottle February of 2023, so it's lasted 2 years. The previous price was $15, and surprisingly the current price that I just paid a few days ago is $10. So that, in comparison to some other well marketed branded items, it's like night and day. So again, $10 for 4 ounces. Obviously it depends on how much or how little you use throughout the season, but for 6 swarm traps, that works just fine for me on my property. I catch about maybe 15 to 20 swarms a season. I will rebait them every few weeks. 2 ounces a year is my consumption rate of that bait. It's just lemongrass, essential oil. I may or may not leave a link to it in the description, but if you just get into Amazon and search lemongrass essential oil, look for the 4-ounce one. That costs about $10, and you'll be set. So this has been going for about 20 minutes. I can feel the heat coming off of it. The wax on the bottom side, of course, is melting. So I'm gonna give it another 20 minutes so I can get all the traps prepped. But in the meantime, let's walk out to the yard. I was out there a few minutes ago, and it is unbelievable. So for early to mid-February, I mean, the bees are bringing in a ton of pollen. It sounds like spring, and it is truly remarkable. Let's walk out there real quick. I'll show you that as I finish these things up, hang some traps. I'll show you some clips of that throughout the day. But yeah, that's my plans for early February. So typically about 3 weeks earlier than what I did last year. And if I sound a little hoarse, it's because I'm still trying to get over this cold, but no kidding. Let's look and listen real quick. And like usual, I'll walk around and just show you the front for a few moments. But over here from the street side is one of my main swarm trap locations. I'll show you that later once I get the traps up. I mean, this is just incredible. Like, every single hive is just booming. This weather is awesome. I know it may or may not come up on camera, but believe me when I say they are bringing in a ton of pollen. It is just awesome to sit here and watch them. All right, so again, plans change, and they change quickly sometimes, and there's no cause to me changing my plans that I may have discussed earlier regarding swarm traps towards the end of the month or early March. Really seeing the weather and seeing how the bees are reacting to the weather, I figured it's just one of those simple principles. I'd rather be early to the scene than late. So one thing is guaranteed, and I may have said this last year and it just sticks with me. One thing is guaranteed if you are trying to catch swarms, right? And that guarantee is you will not catch swarms if you don't have your traps up, which is why I'm gonna get them hung up today, bait it, the full 9, the full process, and then yeah, if I happen to start catching some swarms in February, I mean, that's even better. All right, it's about 2:45. Just give you a quick rundown of all the swarm traps. Finished about 15 minutes ago, but it's just cleaning up a few things. So I'm all set for this week. Quick look at the traps. So if you're new to the channel, this is one of my standard locations. I've had a lot of success with them. Last year, for the first time, I tried this location. I don't remember. I may have had some activity, but I don't think I caught anything. I did try this location also for the first time last year, and I think I caught a very early swarm. The only thing I don't like about those two locations is you're working overhead, so it's not exactly the most safe thing to do. The box is heavy enough by itself, and then when you capture a swarm, obviously depending on the size of the swarm, it'll weigh differently. But the point I'm trying to make is working overhead on a ladder on unstable ground, it's just not the best idea. I didn't have any close calls. I was slightly uncomfortable last year, which is why so far I just chose not to use those two locations. Speaking of two locations, these are my bread and butter. That one there, and then this one over here, which, as you can see, is pretty close to the street. I say that because I catch probably half of my swarms for the season, average about maybe 15 or so out of those two locations. And if you can't tell, I mean, it is right here next to the bee yard. Whether I'm catching my own or not, somewhat TBD. I say that, but last year I did catch a few marked queens, and I had all my queens marked, so I'm assuming some of those were mine. It's really hard to tell, especially if you're not getting into your hives right away. But as I say all that, I do recall finding some unmarked queens, so there's a pretty good chance that I caught some of my own queens last year. One other thing I want to show you real quick and explain before I get out of here. Height wise, so I know for a fact, due to my height, when I put my hand overhead, that's about 7 foot, which is just about where this entrance is. And before I forget, one final touch for baiting, just give the entrance a nice spray. And that's another reason why I like hanging them at that height, because I can easily refresh the entrance with the lemongrass oil I use. I was gonna put a trap in this tree, and I'm pretty sure I had one here before, but as you can see, minus the kids things, there were some branches there that I rested the trap on, but due to trimming that, I decided to try this location over here. I also tried this location for the first time last year. I think I had some activity, but I don't recall catching a swarm. However, I'm gonna give it another shot. And the one thing that I do like about that location with the shed now is I can see it clearly from the back window. So that's kind of a neat feature. All right, here we go, everybody. So it is Saturday, February 15th, just after 11 o'clock. Temperature is 68 degrees and the humidity is in the 60% range. Let's go look at the bee yard real quick just to see how much or how little they're flying. But with this weather, to include some warmer afternoons, I imagine they're going to be flying a lot. And today's focus is feeding every colony. So I plan on topping off the 2.5 gallon division board in hive feeders with a ratio of 1.3 to 1. And the idea behind that being a little thinner than 1 to 1 is to really stimulate the queens. And I may have said that ratio wrong. It's more water to sugar, 1.3 parts water to 1 part sugar, or vice versa. Anyway, let's go. Let me flip the camera around, show you this activity, which is pretty darn impressive, and then I'll fire up the barrel mixer, show you some clips of that, and then feed in the hives, of course. And like usual, I'll walk around and show you the front entrances. We'll take a look at a few of the swarm boxes. I don't anticipate any activity on them, but as you know with bees, you can only anticipate so much. Holy smokes. Look at that. Hopefully that's coming up on camera. This is absolutely fantastic to see. We'll walk the line real quick. They all have very nice activity. Everything looks pretty normal. Good Lord. This is awesome. And then something else I'll do also today, since I'm going to be getting into the colonies to feed them, is I will take just a quick look. All right, no activity on the swarm traps, which is good. I'll just take a quick look at the top boxes. I'll probably just pop the top cover, the inner cover, and then just a quick assessment to see a few things. All of the colonies from last week when I added the medium box with drawn comb, and then equalized a lot of the food frames just to see what they're using, if they're using it, and how they're using it. Hopefully, considering it's been a week, there's a lot of bees in the top boxes, and then maybe I'll pull a center frame or two and see if I can determine how much brood is being laid in the top box, which hopefully is the case now. And then I'm just gonna let them run free until about March, make a reassessment at that point, and between now and then figure out what March's plan looks like. One more look at the yard. This is amazing to see. All right, got the 5 bags of sugar out here. Barrel's uncovered. I'll show you that here in a second. Everything's prepped. Electric cord, hose, water's turned on, and it looks like keeping it covered like I did and cleaning it last week worked. So I'm gonna fill it up with about 10 gallons of water, let it run for a few minutes, pump the 10 gallons out, really just as an effort to clean out the system. And then it's gonna be 20 gallons of water and 125 pounds of sugar, which is about a 1.33 ratio, more water than sugar. So just a little thinner than 1-to-1, which should stimulate the queens very nicely. All right, here we go. So I got 20 gallons. I'm gonna plug this in, which will be a little noisy. I'm gonna add 1 bag and then let it mix for about 2 minutes. So this is the largest batch I've ever made at once. I usually kind of split it in half. So we'll see how this goes. There's no weather in the forecast today, but things are changing pretty quickly. So, all right, this is the last bag. So I'm gonna get this added, let it run for 2 minutes, and then let the mixer run for an additional 20 for a total of 30 minutes. And then my plan is to let it settle for about 20 minutes or so while I go through all of the hives, just to look at the top boxes like I said earlier. I'll show you what it looks like once it's all mixed and settled. I know the consistency I'm looking for, but so far so good. And if I didn't say it earlier, I don't want the sump pump to run for more than 45 minutes since I've experienced some issues last year. So another 2 and then 20, and then I'll show you what all that looks like. All right, hopefully this comes up on camera, if you can see that or not. The mixer's been running for 30 minutes total. I'll show you this, not that it's gonna look much different, but let's cut the power. And then like I said, I'll show you what it looks like now. I'm gonna set a 20-minute timer so I can go through the hives, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like after it's settled down a little bit. So the hives with the sticks on top, those are the ones that were overwintered as a single deep, and I added the medium box last week. So we got hive number 1. If we come down here, hive number 12, hive number 13, also has a brick, and hive number 3. So those are the ones I'm going to start with, really to take a look at what I said earlier. I'm very curious to see how much, or how little, I guess, right, the bees have gotten done in the top box in the last week. So Let me get the camera set up and let's take a look. All right, here you go. So this is, no kidding, a first look. I have not peeked in them at all. I'm not surprised to see a lot of bees up here finishing up using some of the dry sugar that I gave them. But let's see what I've said a few times now. Let's see what they're getting done up here. All right, a few bees, not as many as I was hoping for, but we'll pull a few frames. It looks like they're on the food, which is a good thing. And then I'll pull a few center frames and see if the queen has started to expand the brood chamber at all. All right, really not much to talk about with this one. As you can see, they have a lot of nice drawn comb, some comb they can fix up as soon as the flow hits. They do look like they have a nice amount of bees. So nothing really to be concerned with right now. They have the space, which was the idea of adding the medium box when I did last week. So again, I'm just going to go through the 4 that I added mediums to, more out of curiosity than anything. And then if you haven't seen the previous videos, all my feeders are on the right. So I'm just going to slide the top boxes over for simplicity and effectiveness, really. And then we'll get them all fed with 2.5 gallons of 1.3 to 1 sugar water, which should help stimulate the queen here over the next few weeks. All right, same thing. A true first look at number 12. So they have a nice amount of sugar available still. And there's some bees in the top box, not as many as I was hoping to see. Let's see how... hard to say, right? Yeah, nothing just yet. Not a whole lot of activity. Some, not a whole lot. I think this was a food frame that I gave them, so no surprise they're on top of that. But yeah, hopefully between stimulating the queen with the thin sugar water I'm about to give them today, all of the natural pollen that's currently coming in from the red maple, in addition to some other items, some other sources, hopefully we see a real big increase in brood over the next few weeks. All right, same thing for 13. Not a lot of activity just yet in the top box, but that's fine. So let's check on one more, which is this one. The timer just went off for the mixing barrel. It's been settling for about 20 minutes or so. So I'll show you that here in a second. All right, so we got number 3. Similar to the other ones, finishing up some of the sugar that's been on them for a little bit. And they have a few more bees than the other hives I just showed y'all. Let's take a look at this one frame. This may have been a food frame I gave them. But yeah, got a decent amount of bees on this one. Okay, that's it for now. Let's go take a look at the mixing barrel and then get the colonies fed and probably just check back on them at the end of the month. All right, quick look at the consistency of the sugar water, and yep, that's not very helpful at all now, is it? Okay, I'm sure it's fine. I'm just gonna get this thing fired up for a few minutes, crack the hives open, and then get them fed, and I'll show you a few clips of that. In case I haven't said it, I can't see any other way feeding bees anymore. Mixing sugar in quarts, 5-gallon buckets, hauling all that stuff out here. After making this mixing barrel last summer, I think about June or so, I mean, there's no going back. About halfway done. I'd imagine less than 5 minutes, which is pretty impressive, you know what I'm saying? Here, I'll give you a close-up look real quick if I can get this box over. There we go. So I'll gauge when to stop based off the feeding hole that's towards the front, since the boxes are canted forward just a little bit. Because if I go off the bottom hole, the one towards me, it'll overflow a little bit. All right, second half of the yard. I think, what's the camera say? Less than 3 minutes. So maybe 6 minutes total, which will be pretty cool. All right, at this point, it's just a matter of putting everything back together. It does not take long at all. Just make sure everything's square. I just want to take the time to make sure everything's closed up, since we do have some weather coming our way. But yeah, this will just take a few minutes. And as far as figuring out what to do with it looked like almost 10 gallons, I have enough boxes in storage still and feeders. I think I'm just going to take a deep with maybe 3 or 4 2.5 gallon feeders, fill that thing up, set it over on the side yard somewhere, and just let it serve its purpose as an open feeder. All right. Let's take a look at the front entrances again. I need to turn the fence back on. And yeah, that's it for today. Stay tuned for the rest of the month. All right, hey, here it is, Sunday, February 16th, right at 5:30 in the afternoon. Temperature is 64 degrees, humidity is about 75%, and I am finally out here today to treat the hives. The activity has died down tremendously from about an hour ago. And the reason I say I'm finally out here is because for most of the day, up until a few hours ago, we have actually had a very steady rain and some pretty high winds, to include gusts up to about 20 miles an hour. And I'm happy the weather finally cleared, because looking at the 10-day forecast, if I don't get this done today, which coincidentally my calendar reminder was for today, being around mid-month, but if I don't get it done today with the weather that's coming up this week into the weekend, it'll be another 10 plus days, pretty much the end of February, by the time I can treat the hives. And that will obviously just throw off my entire schedule throughout the winter months, which is to treat the hives around the middle of the month. So this thing's gonna be heated up real soon. I'm gonna open up all the entrances just like I did last time, get my respirator on, and get to it. All right, well, as usual, that does not take terribly long at all. Let's see, I need to adjust this real quick. All right, that's better. All right, let's get to it. Should drop down to about 400. Yep. Just like clockwork. All right, yeah, just moving along. I'm not timing it this time around, but like usual, it's pretty cool to see the amount of bees still out foraging. So I'm on 15, and I just have 3 to go, and that's it. All right, there you go, folks. That's February's treatment. So it's just shy of 6 o'clock. I'm just finishing up with the nuke, which won't take long at all, as the very last one stays closed up while the nuke is treating. So we'll see what the rest of the month brings us, but as far as treating for mites with OAV, that's it for me. All right, here it is, Thursday, February 20th, right after 9 o'clock, and the temperature is 25 degrees, and the humidity is 95%. it's a late show for work because hopefully we experienced our last bit of winter weather yesterday, overnight into today. And let me show you, man, let me show you what I'm looking at. So it was cold enough for snow, but it never snowed, and we had a decent amount of rain and sleet all night to where it is weighing down a lot of the tree limbs. And I'll walk around a little closer on the way back from the bee yard and show you that, and the barberries and blueberries. But let's walk out to the yard and just see what that looks like real quick. This is it doesn't happen often, and hopefully this is the last little bit of winter wonderland we get. Yeah, look at this. I mean, this is, holy smokes, that is frozen. Let me just try and go under that. Pretty wild. Yeah, they are pretty frozen solid. I'll show you the front of the hives here in a second, but let's talk about the upcoming weather first. So tonight it might get cold again, down to the low 20s, and Saturday, but Sunday I'm moving on. Sunday's coldest overnight, probably right at dawn, is about 31, and that's it. So Monday and on, it stays above freezing, and in fact Tuesday's high is 67. So the hive should defrost rather quickly. Hopefully everybody survived. I'll show you as much as I can, and the reason I say that is because my path is kind of blocked here, but there's a somewhat concerning amount of bees on the entrances, but there's always some die off, as you know. So yeah, come Tuesday I'll give y'all an update, because that'll be the warmest day, and hopefully everybody's flying and clearing out the dead. To say it's cold is a bit of an understatement, but bees are pretty resilient. And like I was saying a few moments ago, talking about the upcoming weather, I'll come out on Tuesday and just give y'all an update and show you the hive entrance activity, which hopefully, right, hopefully they're all alive and well and enjoying the temps in the high 60s. So we'll see here in a few days. All right, here we go, everybody. So it's Saturday, February 22nd, right at 1:30. Temperature is 54 degrees, humidity is about 30%. It feels nice now, and I am going out to the yard, of course, right? Because hopefully I am more in my head than anything, but it was 17 degrees this morning. I'm usually pretty good at paying attention to the forecast, but for whatever reason, I just wasn't lately, and I did not put entrance reducers on the hives. I left the mouse guards in place, which for the most part have been doing an okay job. And full disclosure, I popped by the yard on the way back from the club, just had their short course final exam today. Took a look at the entrances. The sun's not really hitting a lot of the entrances. The some that the sun is hitting, there's a little flight activity, not much, but the ones that are more shaded, not too much activity. A lot of dead bees, you know, subjective, right? But a lot of dead bees on the entrances. That in combination with not a lot of activity is kind of how that first hive looked after the snowstorm, right? So there are some bees flying. I'll show you that here in a second. I'm really hoping I'm more in my head, like I said, right, than anything, and there's really nothing to worry about. But there's only one way to determine this, and I just plan on popping the hive lids, and hopefully there's a whole bunch of bees at the top if they're not flying, which there's more flights now than there were an hour ago. So I'll show you a few things I'm looking at, right? So we got a little bit of a feed station here, which is some of the leftover syrup I made last week. And like usual, let's take a look at the bee yard from this angle first. Okay, all right. Yeah, this is This is way different than what it looked like about an hour ago. So this makes me feel a lot better. But like usual, let's just walk around to the entrances and see what that looks like. And okay, hopefully, right? Hopefully all of them show some activity. So number one, no real activity to speak of. They are also shaded. Number two's looking good. Maybe pop the top on 19. 14, no concerns. 12, okay. 17's like kind of coming to life. Good, good, definitely good. And final three, all good. All right, so basically you know why I'm out here now, and no activity on the swarm traps. All right, so you know why I'm out here. I'm still gonna do a few things. Not as many things as I initially thought based on a quick trip just to look at the entrances an hour ago. But again, then from kind of like here on down was still mostly shaded. So if you don't know this, hives definitely come to life as soon as the sun hits the entrance, which is why it's in your best interest to face your hives in the southeast direction. All right, so my focus is going to be down on number 1 and maybe number 19 in the 3rd position, and maybe 12 and 17, just those few. And like I said, I'm just going to pop the lid, and if I can see a cluster up there, I'm just going to say they're good for today. All right, so like I was saying, it's really the 1st, 3rd, and the 6th position. All right, that's concerning. Great. Terrible start. 3rd position. All right, they're alive. That's what I was hoping to see in the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one has low activity on the entrance. Ooh, that might not be good. And I think this one's okay, but since I'm right here, all right, they have some bees. All right, I'm just gonna crack the 2 boxes apart on number 1, and hopefully they're just clustered or something. All right, there is hope for this one. Oh man, I was getting worried. All right, let me do the same for, I think it was this one, right? No, they're good. Maybe it's the 5th position. Shoot, they're alive. That is a ton of moisture. Let me show you something real quick. So yeah, that was a ton of moisture, right? In this top box. They do have some bees, but you know what I did recently, semi-recently? I pulled all the top covers back, and I think it was either earlier in this series of videos for February or January, I showed everybody that I've been keeping all the lids pushed forward, because not only does it let some of that water run out from that entrance, but it also lets the colony use that entrance. So it's kind of one of those if it's not broke scenarios that I decided to change up for no real good reason. All right, yeah, that's all, folks. So I am happy to report they are all looking good. Most are looking better than others. There's only a few with moderate activity, but I think that little bit of disturbance with popping the top lid kind of did enough to wake a few of them up. Just to share real quick, since I'm inside the fence line from the far left of the yard, moving on back. So pretty nice activity for this time of day, and given the temperature, right, in the mid 50s. They got some cleanup to do. 17, it looks like 14's working through a lot of cleanup. I was going to lift the mouse guards to fully expose the entrance, but tonight's temperature is down in the low 30s, so I'm not going to do that just yet, since, you know, we're almost to March, right? But I think they're okay. I did move all the lids forward, so hopefully that helps with, yeah, check that out. Hopefully moving the lids forward really helps with some of this excessive moisture that builds up. But yeah, Tuesday should be in the mid 60s, and then moving forward we're gonna have some cold evenings. But I use the I think it's Accurate. I think I use their month calendar, and you can look for the current month and you can look ahead, and it's most likely based off historical data. But the rest of February looks pretty nice. A lot of warm days, a few cool evenings and everything. March is looking really, really nice. And then if everything stays the course, of course, April is like, that is prime time. But we got to get there first, right? We got to get through February, March. And so far things are looking okay. Nothing to complain about. Some happy bees enjoying the sun. So all good. I think I was more in my head than anything earlier. All right, here it is, Sunday, February 23rd, right at 12:30. The temperature is 62 degrees and the humidity is 31%, and it feels fantastic. Let me show you a few things, because the bees are out and about and enjoying the warm weather. Mainly what I wanted to show you was the extra feeding station due to my miscalculations when I was making the sugar water last week. They've been actively on this basically since I put it out, or maybe a day or two later. Whatever Hoover Hives uses to coat their boxes, the bees have been enjoying coming over here and checking out the equipment ever since I put this out too. The main reason I'm out here today is because it is time to refresh the swarm traps with just some lemongrass oil, which is what I've used for years. So I'll finish with the last trap over there by the feeder. I hung the traps, I believe, on February 9th. So it's been about maybe 2 weeks, or getting pretty close to it. And if you're new to swarm catching and wondering what I mean by rebaiting them, that's it. Just spray the entrance and call it a day. Since I'm walking out to the yard, I figured I'd show you this again. So this is just nice to see that the bees discover the open feeders. Sometimes it takes them a few days, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it is nice to see they found it and they are using it. And of course, if I'm coming out here to rebait the traps that are just outside the yard, I figured give you a quick look at all the hives, and it is absolutely fantastic seeing them really enjoying this weather. All right. Just touch up these two real quick. That's it. Come over here to this one, and I think I said it earlier when I was describing hive placement and height and all those things. And there's a lot of information online, like everything, but I like hanging the swarm traps at that height because, as you can see, I can simply reach up and rebait the entrance just by spraying some of the lemongrass oil into the well, the main hole that's open. Any higher, you know, you'd have to get a ladder, and that's honestly, that's just inconvenient. So do the things that are convenient and simple, and it doesn't get any easier than that. One last look at the yard, and that does it for me today. All right, hey, we made it to the end of the month, everybody. So here it is, Friday, February 28th, right at 10:45, and it's a little cooler than it has been. Right now the temperature is 61 degrees, humidity is 40%. Today's high is, I think, about 63, maybe 64. And as I say all that, since we're talking about the weather, tomorrow's high is going to be in the low to mid 70s. So let me just talk you through a few things that I have going on in preparation for March. And we'll go take a look at the bee yard, because surprisingly, there's a lot of nice activity given the temperature. I pulled these boxes out of storage. I used paramoth over the winter, and it works. No wax moth damage to speak of so far. So I pulled these out of storage yesterday, letting them air out, as you see, mainly facing about southeast, so the sun can hit it, good airflow. And then my intent is to add them probably around mid-March. So yeah, add those boxes in the next week or so, because I don't want to miss out on any sort of nectar flow. And then something I keep going back and forth in my head, just because I haven't made a decision yet. If I run them, so there's 4 boxes there, if I run them as 9 frames, That gives me the option to put 4 frames in another box, and then I can find 5 new frames with heavy wax to either fill that box or spread those 5 frames out throughout. So the majority of the 5 boxes being ran as 9 frames have mostly drawn comb, with maybe, if that makes sense, maybe one new frame per, which shouldn't be a big deal for the colonies, the strong colonies, to draw out as soon as we have a nectar flow. So like usual, we'll just take a quick look at the yard, and this is what I was saying, just really nice activity. Yeah, y'all should see it yesterday and some other days this week when it was really warm, because we had a few days in the low 70s, and I mean the hives were, it looked like spring. But let's do a quick drive-by. They all look good. Number 12, I don't know, I was curious if they were getting robbed out the other day, but I don't know, things seem okay right now. Yeah, so far so good. They all seem pretty happy. You can see some pollen coming into number 3, which is the case for all of them. All right, folks, hey, that does it for me. Really appreciate y'all watching. Cole's Farm here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. If you have any comments, leave them below. If you haven't subscribed and you're still watching the video at this point, I really appreciate it. Subscribe, like, do all the usual things people say, and come join us in March. March should be the last compilation video I make for the season, and then I'll start making the usual weekly, bi-weekly videos as I inspect the colonies. See y'all next month.